Hello, I'm Mimi, and in this video, I'm going to be answering some questions while I draw two little ghost friends browsing in a bookshop. I've sped the illustration up to be a time lapse of my drawing process. This one I drew in Adobe Photoshop in about 2.5 hours in real time. So I asked on a recent YouTube community post for you guys to ask some questions, and I've picked out some of the more common ones to answer in today's video. So let's get into them. So the first question is from Sem Tema, and they ask, do you plan your posts ahead? Like have 2 weeks worth of content scheduled so you don't have to worry about posting consistently? No, I don't plan my posts ahead. I don't think I'm organized enough to plan more than 2 days ahead. And even then, I normally do things on the day anyway, especially for illustrations that are only sort of a couple of hours of work. I always tend to just do them the same day, unless I'm making a piece of content that I need to plan ahead for, like a YouTube video, like this time lapse. Maybe I'll plan it ahead, but for my normal Instagram illustrations, I very rarely will plan ahead the content. Okay, the next question is, Amanda asked, how has your experience been with balancing YouTube, Instagram, and other obligations? My experience with balancing all the platforms has been just spin all the plates all at once, all the time, and learning how to balance that so you don't burn out. Once one of my platforms has grown to the point where I'm pretty consistent on it and happy with what I'm doing there, I then have more capacity to spin up another platform like YouTube, and that might become a priority for a little while, and I'll just maintain Instagram and maybe post a little less on Instagram to put some of that energy into YouTube. But it's a lot of plates to have spinning. I think you've got to choose the platforms that you enjoy, because you'll only be able to be consistent if you enjoy it. So I don't use Twitter, I don't really use TikTok. I've chosen the platforms that I like and that I know that I can enjoy putting energy into, and then it's not as much work. So to answer the question, my experience with balancing all of these things is that it's hard work, it's tough, and it takes a lot of reassessing and a lot of reprioritizing. You've just got to figure it out as you go. Make sure I'm still prioritizing friends and family and other things in my life that are important, and just figuring out what is important to me, and that's where I put my energy. Rafaela asks, how was the experience of jumping into social media? How were the first months and years? I want to do it, but I'm afraid, like if I don't succeed. I think this is really common. I get quite a few people say that they're holding themselves back because they're scared of the negative impact of social media, and I totally get it. When I started my account, I was a little bit hesitant about the negative impacts of putting myself out there on social media and being vulnerable, and what if people don't like my art, and what if people aren't very nice about it and they don't say nice things, or I have trolls on the internet and that makes me feel bad about my art rather than better. But honestly, it's actually been really positive. I think if you put out positive energy and you put out your art and you are really realistic about it and you're really authentic about what you're doing, people don't have a reason to be negative towards you, and it doesn't matter what they think, really. I think if you've got your own measures of success and they're not based on what other people think, then there's no reason you won't succeed on social media, because it's not based on them, it's based on you. The primary goal for me on social media was always to grow my portfolio, to improve my art skills, and to do it for myself, and to build a community. The community doesn't have to be big. It didn't matter how many people I was engaging with. And that meant that it didn't matter if my account grew a lot or just a little bit, that I was always going to be able to succeed because I was in control of the outcome of that goal. It didn't rely on the algorithm, it didn't rely on likes or numbers, and that makes it much less scary, removing that pressure of the algorithm and the numbers. That was the secondary goal. Would be great to build a larger audience so that I can build a business out of this, but the primary goal was always about my own art, and that means that I can control the outcome. So I think it's important to have your own measures of success, especially on social media. Have outcomes for success that are based on what you put into it and how you engage with people. If you hold yourself back because you're afraid you won't succeed, you're guaranteeing that you won't succeed because you haven't given yourself the opportunity to try it. So that's up to you. Okay, Mano says, how to stay consistent even if you're not growing financially from your art? So I think it depends on your goals. I think if you absolutely want to make money from your art and that is your #1 priority above everything else, then you need to be driven enough toward that goal to be consistent for yourself. And you need to make sure you're strategizing online or on social media and whatever platform you're on to make money from your art. And there's So many ways you can do that, and you'll just need to try them out, see what works for you, and stay consistent with each one for a little while until you know that the data isn't working, and try something else. Staying consistent isn't the only thing you need to think about. It's about strategy. Do you know who your target audience is? Do you solve a problem for them? You need to then look at it as a business if that's the main thing you're looking at here, and it's less about your own art journey and more about monetizing and building a business, which is totally fine. There's all of this other stuff wrapped into it, and who you're selling to and what problems you're solving for them. And those are also really important to think about. So Jessie asks, how many art pieces do you do a day and how long does it take for you to complete them? Well, Jessie, it depends on how I feel and what day of the week it is and how much I've been drawing lately and what's on TV. These days, so on 3 days of the week, I will draw an Instagram illustration. Most of those take between 1 and 3 hours to draw, depending how much time or capacity I feel like I have to draw them and how much I want to draw. Now that I've put a lot of energy into YouTube and other platforms and I'm growing my art more as a business, there are some days of the week that I don't draw at all, or I'll create assets for YouTube videos or other pieces of content. And then when I have a big project on, like a commission for a picture book, there will be 2 weeks where I draw every single day for most of the day. So it depends on what's on, and I really like variety. I'm not great at having a set schedule every single day being the same, so I like to mix it up, and I always try and have weekends off. And when I used to post 5 times a week to Instagram, I would always take the weekends off because I just need that break from drawing. Even if my drawings don't take very long, I still need that creative break and to take the pressure away from feeling like I have to draw every single day. I've tried batch making illustrations before, or batch making time lapses for content before, and doing 2 or 3 illustrations in a day, and I just found that so hard to keep coming up with new compositions and illustrations through the day. And so now I pretty much always just max out at 1 illustration on any given day. I know some artists spend 6 to 8 to 10 hours to days on their illustrations, and that's fine if that's your style. Some styles are really beautiful and detailed and just take lots and lots of layers. My style is just really simple and just doesn't always take that long. There's no comparison across artists or how long your art should take. There's no right and wrong amount of time it takes. It's just up to you and your style and how much you're enjoying it. So that's just me. That's how long I take to draw. My Timeless Forest says, what is your daily routine? Do I have a daily routine? We do have a routine. On Monday mornings, I have a meeting with Dan and we go over our stats and our data and what content we've got coming up and celebrate some milestones if we've had any recently. But on every other day, it's different. Every single day is different. And I like that. I'm not great with routine. I'm not great with schedule. Apart from waking up and having my breakfast and at the end of the day having dinner and watching some TV, the middle hours just get lost in this chaos of script writing, illustrating, YouTube video making, data assessing, business doing, snacks, lunch, tea, just whatever needs to be done in no particular order, maximum disorder. And that kind of works for me. I kind of try and prioritize what needs to be done, and then I spend a lot of time on things that probably don't need to be done straight away, but I just kind of felt like doing them, so I'll do them then and there, even though I didn't really need to. So what is my daily routine? It's a mess. It's all over the place, and that works for me. Things get done, just in no particular order. Organized chaos. That's how I would describe my daily routine, and I like it that way. Miel Archive says, any advice for posting 5 times a week on Instagram? How did you manage to find the motivation to create every day? That's a good question. Where do I begin? Something that worked for me, posting 5 times a week on Instagram, which is a lot. It's a lot of posting, especially when you're creating your own content from scratch, was keeping my posts and my illustrations really simple and quite low maintenance. I tried to prioritize illustrations that didn't take too long to make, unless I was feeling like I had loads of time that day and loads of energy and wanted to make something bigger. I tried to vary how in-depth my illustrations were so that not every day of the week I was posting a really full-on, finalized, in-depth illustration that was taking me a long time. I set out with the expectation for myself that I could just post a sketch if that's all I had time for. And if all I had time for was 30 minutes, I was going to draw or create something for myself and for the habit, and I was going to post it with no expectation on myself of it being amazing or finished or anything much really. I was just going to share my journey, whatever that looked like that day. And that helped me a lot from the beginning of removing loads of the pressure of putting out finalized art. And that's just what worked for me in my account. I think that's probably the only way I stayed consistent, was knowing that what I created that day didn't have to be amazing. It just had to be something that I had made from scratch. Whether it was simple or complicated, it didn't really matter. It was more about the habit and the practice of doing it. So I think you just have to want to do it. So if you don't, then like, what are you doing it for? Like, what is your motivation to do it? Why do you want to create 5 times a week on Instagram? What are you looking to get out of it? And I think if you've got that really clear and you can come back to that every time you're not feeling very motivated, that will help you see the bigger picture. And also, don't forget that it's okay to drop a day here and there. You're not a robot. We are human. Things happen in our lives, and sometimes we have a terrible day or just time gets away from us. And build into your expectation that you're gonna miss a day here or there. The next question is from Jara Projects, and they say, what kind of useful content can someone create who is not an extremely experienced artist? We all start somewhere, and I think if you want to create content but you feel like you're not very experienced, then share the journey. That's what I did when I started. I didn't feel like an experienced artist at all. I felt like I was really just starting out, and so my whole thing, and it still is to share that journey as I go. Really, you only need to be one step ahead of someone else who's just slightly earlier on their journey to have something to share with them and to have something to teach from your experience that they haven't had themselves yet. I definitely do not think you need to be an extremely experienced anything to create content that is useful to someone else. I made a blog post early last year on how I got my first 250 Instagram followers, because that was just where I was at the time. And there were people starting out who had 10 Instagram followers who could find that useful, because sometimes I think it's nice to learn from a teacher who's only a couple of steps ahead rather than the really big fish who are real experts in their journey, because it can seem so unattainable and inaccessible for beginners. So I don't think you need to be experienced. I think we all have something to offer. We all have unique experiences, and just share the journey of wherever you're at right now, and that is absolutely going to be useful to someone. You just don't know it yet. So then Daksha has asked, how are some ways to deal with mental health pressure of having a big account? In terms of the pressure of the account in general, I try and stay really focused on what I'm doing and what I'm putting out, just like I always have. I don't really think of my Instagram account as being watched by 60,000 people. I kind of still feel like it's just me and my little community of art buddies sharing our art together. I just create it because I want to, and I want to share with people. And I try and just stay focused on my goals with the content. And if I were just sharing it with some friends of mine who wanted to learn these things, there's just a lot more messages and comments and people to engage with now. And my whole thing is that I really want to engage with these people and I want to answer all the questions. And so I will just sit and spend hours going through my YouTube comments, but I've now had to accept that I can't do that anymore. For my mental health and for my capacity, there's just too much that I have to give in order to go through all of the comments and answer everyone. For me, ignorance is bliss. I don't want to know how many people that actually is. Dan really likes to visualize things, and he wanted to bring up a picture of a stadium full of 50, 60,000 people so we could understand what that actually looked like. And I just didn't want to see it, because I just don't want to know the reality of how many eyes are potentially seeing my content. It adds pressure that I don't need, and it's not why I'm here. And so I just kind of try not to focus on that aspect of it. I focus on all the really lovely comments that I get and all the really warm engagements that I get to have with people, and that keeps things really positive for my account. And I put out positive content, and I tend to 99.9% of the time get really positive feedback. One of the pressures of having a bigger account is knowing that you're going to have more people who are negative. But so far in my experience, I feel like I've been really fortunate to not have too many negative people. And yeah, the comments that they've had to say are like, my 2-year-old can draw better than you. And honestly, they're more comical than they are impactful. Like, you've got to laugh about that stuff. And heck, if your 2-year-old can use Photoshop like I can, then you are doing a fantastic job. You are doing something right, and good for you. So I think for me, it's about focusing on the positives, being realistic about the negatives, but not letting them hold you back and not letting them interfere with what I'm doing. But I do think it's very important to be aware of your own mental health and how social media impacts on that. And if you are feeling like it's too much for your mental health, then definitely be aware of that. Definitely speak to the people who you need to speak to about it, and make sure you stay on top of it, because your mental health is really important, especially when it comes to being creative. So the next question is from Choice. Maybe it's Choice. I'm gonna put it out to you guys how I say that one. They've said, how much time do you spend making a video? So if you don't know, I make my YouTube videos with my partner Dan, who is a video editor, which obviously saves me a whole lot of time in making videos. So it's a joint effort between us. It really varies depending on the video. We at the moment structure our YouTube channel so that we loosely alternate between making a video that's very quick and easy to make and a video that takes a lot more time to make, but maybe has a lot more value for people and is more informational. So to make a video like this, which is a time-lapse drawing with some voiceover on top of it, it's quite simple for us to do. Dan set up the camera and all the gear to film me doing my time-lapse drawing. I spent about 2.5 hours doing the drawing itself with a little break, so maybe 3 hours total. Then we'll do a voiceover. For this one, it's a bit more in depth than my other time lapses because I'm answering these questions. But this part of the process probably takes a couple of hours for us to collate the questions, answer the questions, do the voiceover. And then for something like this, I let Dan go ahead and do the rest. So he'll edit it all together. So it'll take Dan about half a day to a day to edit this video in particular, because there's lots of editing of what I'm saying and making me sound like I'm more concise than I actually am. And so in total for this video, it's probably about 2 days worth of work between Dan and myself. For the more informational videos, like the how much money I make with my art online video or the how our YouTube channel got monetized video, they take a lot more work. But I do think they're more valuable in general to people. So for us, it's worth putting them in. We just can't really do them every week. So for those, between the scripting, the asset making, the finding of all the graphics and the footage, any filming we need to do, the music, the assembling everything, the fine tuning of everything, I'd say that takes between the two of us, between 5 and 7 days for each of those really heavy 15 or so minute informational videos. The next question is from Artopia. They say, is it important to show your face if you're planning on starting a YouTube channel? I'm kind of shy and worried that's the type of video people prefer. You don't have to show your face. There's loads of accounts and videos that I watch, I never see their face. I have no idea what these people look like. And then there's content that is only to camera speaking, and I think both are fine, both are valid. If you're not showing your face, then just make sure you're expressing yourself in other ways. I'm a really private person. This sounds ridiculous because I've built social media channels about putting myself out there, but I'm really private and hesitant to put myself out there on the internet. The internet's a scary place. Even though I would rather just sit in my room and never have to show my face to anyone, that's a compromise I've had to make, and I think you can absolutely balance how much of yourself you want to put out there with the goals that you have for your content. I think assess what's important to you, why you may or may not want to show your face. Can you show your values through your content without showing your face? You can always start showing your face in videos later on. And if you go back through our channel, all of the early videos were just my hands creating my art. I didn't make an appearance for about a year, I don't think, into our videos. And so you can pivot at any time. It's your content. You can change it when you want to and when you're ready, and just keep reassessing what's important to you and what's working for you and your audience. Ask your audience, do they want to see your face? Is that important to them? Just ask them if you're not sure, and make sure you're aligning to your own values and do what works for you. Rocket Child has asked, how did you find an engaged audience for your speed drawing videos? I make speed drawing videos too, but hardly any of my subs actually watch them, and I don't know why. I wouldn't necessarily say we have a highly engaged audience with the time-lapse videos I do, but there's still a piece of content that is important for my channel because I want to show people that I'm an artist and I'm actively drawing quite regularly. And I know that when I was learning to draw, I was watching time-lapse drawings to see other artists process. So I think it has value to people. You just need to find the right people and the right audience who want to just watch a process, and they want to watch a really sped up process of the art rather than maybe a full-on tutorial. You could consider adding more value to your speed drawing videos like we have with this one, where I'm doing a Q&A over the top of my time lapse. I've spent the time answering questions like yours, and that gives a little more value to my audience who might not have just wanted to watch a time lapse play out just as it is. So I think ask your audience that what they want to see. Do they want more speed drawing videos? Do they want something else along with it, like Q&As or some tutorial aspect over the top? And you can just reassess based on what you want to create and what your audience wants to see. Now, Claudia has asked, do you work with a team? If yes, what are their roles? I do have a team in a sense. I work with myself, and I work with my partner Dan, who, like I said, is a video editor. He's been doing it professionally for about 8 years now, so he's got loads of experience under his belt, which is super helpful when you're making a YouTube channel and you're trying to make video content. But he also helps a lot with the stats and the data and the Excel spreadsheets, because he is someone who I would describe as being logical, and I would describe myself as being chaotic, as being not very organized. Dan has an Excel spreadsheet on everything. Every piece of data that you could collect across my social media channels, Dan's on top of it. He's got the graphs, he knows what's going on. So he helps with all the analysis of that kind of thing, keeping on top of our audience and what they want and how big they are. And he also does the reels for Instagram, where he takes my illustrations and he animates them and makes a little reel with them. As far as our roles, I would say that I am the creative director, I'm the illustrator, the script writer, the Instagram poster, and Dan is the post-production supervisor, video editor, cinematographer, personal assistant, and office coordinator. He keeps on top of my schedule, he keeps things organized, and he keeps all the files organized, and I do the fun, creative, good stuff. It's really great to be able to collaborate with someone, bring someone on board to help with some of the creation of the things that aren't your jam, and find someone who's just got a great creative energy that works with you and you can spin up creative ideas together. I think that's really rewarding and helps us come up with a lot of great ideas, having that ability to bounce off each other and not just being in my own head all the time. So yeah, I have my partner Dan to work with. The last question is from M3. There are so many ways to start an art business, but it's difficult to choose where to start, especially with a full-time job. Any tips? I think if you want to start an art business on the side of something as big as a full-time job, then it's going to be helpful to be really realistic about how much time you actually have to spend on your art business outside of your other commitments and other things that are important to you. I think if I was starting my art business now and I had a full-time job, knowing now what I know about how far I've come with this business, I would be looking to sell commissions straight away if I had an established art style and was already reasonably comfortable in the art that I was creating. So that was the first way that worked for me, that I was earning a decent amount of money from making my illustrations specifically. And if I didn't have an established art style, then I'd be illustrating for Instagram, building my art style and building an audience simultaneously, which is kind of what I did the really long and slow way when I started my account. Outside of that, Etsy is a really great platform, and so is Ko-fi for offering your art in different ways. You can sell digital prints of your art, phone wallpapers, physical prints of your art, stickers, washi tapes, all sorts of things. I would maybe build a little shop if that was a path that I wanted to go down, and really look to spend my time on social media promoting that content and promoting those illustrations and products. And also, obviously, you've got to consider that that takes a lot of time. And do you want to have orders that you need to fulfill alongside your full-time job? Or do you want to go fully digital and have it all be quite passive and everything is automatically delivered to your customer? And then really honing in what you want to create, what will leave you fulfilled, and what do you want to be making with your art, and how do you find that audience and how do you engage the audience to direct them to what you want to sell them. I think that's what I would be focusing on, and I agree there's a lot of ways you can start an art business, especially online, and having a full-time job is a big commitment. And I applaud anyone who's building an art business while working a full-time job, because I didn't, and it was hard enough me doing it. But you can absolutely do it. It may take a little while, but you'll get there. Just focus on what you want to create, find your audience, and put your beautiful art out into the world. So those are all the questions I have time for today. Thank you everyone who left questions for me to answer, and I hope you enjoyed watching these little ghost friends come to life. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, leave me a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next one. Toodaloo, bye!